time. We have a few who have been with us for a while. And I want to say some fairly atrocious and fundamental things. It's very difficult to believe that everybody else is wrong. But I come from a science background where very often there would be a lone scientist and he would say that what people have been doing for thousands of years was wrong and what people around us are doing was wrong. And sometimes they were even punished for saying this. Not too long ago, about 400 years ago, when people tried to say it is the sun which is at the center of the planets and the planets move around it, some of them were killed, some were compromised. Galileo had a compromise. Galileo had a compromise with the authorities. The authorities said you can think whatever you want, but don't say that in public. So Galileo compromised with that and continued, but Kepler was killed and so on and so forth, and this has been there. I'm drawing attention to that because today we have come to another situation where a large majority of people are quote unquote in the wrong direction. And the true direction is the direction which the science of last 300-400 years have led us to. So for depending upon from where you start counting for millions or thousands of years, humans have had their own understanding of the world. It had nothing to do with what the real world was. Even today we do that. I remember around January 15th we say, "Kya Makar Sankranti aa gayi hai, sun वो मकर राशि में चला गया है वगैरह," but you know that it hasn't. Nothing like that has happened. I want to share with you a few interesting and surprising things, I hope. All of you have had a good education, you're related to school system. What is multiplication? बताइए. Repeated addition. Everybody agrees with it? So 3 into 2 is 3 plus 3, that is 6. Now without changing the rule, what is half into half? Half multiplied by half. Huh? Half multiplied by half is 1. So you see, this is the problem that I find, that with all this great education, and I don't ask you for your degrees, you do not know what is multiplication. Right? Because you yourself found the counter example. I didn't have to give anything. You could. And why I am enjoying this is that I have tried this ever so often, including people who pass from IIT. Even they will say repeated multiplication because it has been so strongly drilled in the school that and the first thing you learn when you come into anything else is, vector, this, that, whatever kind of thing. This is what I want to draw attention to, and this is what we are trying to do. Ask you another simple question. How much of the earth is water? Tell this, a quick response. 75%. It is actually 0.02%. 75% is the surface that is covered with water, but that water is very thin. There is no ocean deeper than a few miles. So surface 75% hai. Total volume of water is 0.02%. Google karke dekh lijiye, what is the percentage of water on the planet? Now, what I'm saying is we have been so much tuned to so many wrong things which are factually wrong. You can check it with Google. You check with Google what is the percentage, it will tell you 0.02%. Surface area is. Now, why I'm saying this is that as we advance, accuracy in your understanding of the world is very important. And I gave this example to show that we are among the highest level of educated people. We still carry those misconceptions because they were bought in school. And when I'm trying to propagate teaching young people the right things, that is the reason. because this bias stays with you, and I could go on and on with various kind of things. Why have I chosen the title as the AI and quantum world? Because it represents today's time. I want to say, let's get real about what the world is about and how we describe or understand the world today. एरिस्टोटल के ज़माने में और हमारे यहाँ भी पंच तत्व होता था, पृथ्वी जल आकाश वायु whatever. You know that today, in fact what today, every classroom, they probably put periodic table. That is all the elements that exist in the world. Nature even artificially creates some 92 to 100 elements are all that this world consists of. So not the 4 or 5, not unimaginable, a finite number. Then as we progress further, we found that even those elements, Dalton's model consists of electrons, protons, neutrons. Then you go a little bit more physics, so gluons and hadrons and leptons and so on, but still a handful of particles. As we progressed, first of the thing that we could do was harness energy. The first step that humans did was to harness energy, and that was the muscular energy of animals. So we domesticated animals, so gai, bhais, goda, bakra, oont, whatever we could do, we got that, and that was our source of energy. The only source of energy we had was muscular energy of animals and lower level humans whom we call slaves or servants or whatever. That was the only source of energy that we knew. And in fact, it is very interesting. A friend from Shashi Tharoor, he says India was among the third country of GDP in so much so, and he has no science background. You were the third in GDP because you had that largest population, and the only source of energy was human effort, and therefore you were largest. When the Industrial Revolution came, those who were early adopters of Industrial Revolution were able to have more energy to themselves. And it's not a good thing to criticize people who are already dead, but our Rajas and Maharajas, even if they had money, wanted to buy Rolls Royce to clean the garbage on the street instead of making factories. They could have also made factories because now people knew that you can make factory out of steam, you can do this. But our Rajas, Maharajas were saying, I'll buy 6 Rolls Royce to clean the garbage in my street because I was insulted by that. So we lost out because of that. And why I'm saying this is that many of us know that we will continue losing out on various progresses that are going to happen. And one of the purposes of what we are trying to do is to get people to be aware of what the future directions are. The first thing was energy, and then we know that from human muscular energy, you remember in school mein padhte hain, lever, pulley, inclined plane as the simple machines. They were called the simple machines, and imagine what we did with that. उन्होंने सब कुछ ताजमहल जो बनाया, ये बनाया, मीनाक्षी टेम्पल बनाया, उन्हीं सब से बना लिया था. Then came steam as a major power driver, and that changed everything, was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Then we were able to get to electricity, which became an even greater power. And today, we are talking of information as the driver of the new thing. This is totally unanticipated, not fully understood. That more than control over the mechanical part, the human part and the machine part, it is the control over the information part that is going to be very critical for this thing. And we saw the disaster yesterday when the information systems collapsed. And so this is the world that we have to develop for, prepare people for. Things which are completely abstract, practical and pragmatic. So as we moved up the information value chain from various things, we came to computers, and AI and quantum are the two core things that we are talking about now. And that is why we are saying that preparing for this age. Now, I have, in fact, shared with Ramesh to distribute some two popular books which I came across. One was on the quantum nation. This is a summary of what India is doing towards the quantum thing. And the other was on ethics of AI, because around AI, a lot of discussion has generated. Earlier, what was happening is that many of the things which are frontiers of knowledge were in the hands of people who were in laboratories or science programs and so on, and the common man had no idea what was happening. So when the structure of DNA was being figured out by Crick and Watson, ordinary people had no idea what it was going on to be. Same thing with most of physics, except of course that when Einstein wrote is E equal to mc squared, nobody really understood the implication of it. But when the bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, then they realized that, oh, this simple equation can cause a lot of damage. And now there is a certain degree of concern that whenever any new scientific progress happens, people want to see what its impact is going to be. So when we understood the structure of the DNA, we could clone sheep and so on, there was a concern about, is this the right direction or not? On AI, there is a huge concern. In fact, a book I have circulated, AI ethics, that has come up. And there is already so much discussion about regulating AI and so on. And what I am trying to say is that this is now taking it out of pure science and technology to a human concern. And that is why people need to be aware. So policymakers have to do that. They have to understand how they. Now, lots of people are asking for AI to be regulated. After the collapse that happened yesterday, we will see a lot more stricter regulation and approval and so on and so forth. And quantum has just begun. People are anticipating. I know firsthand, and it's not being broadcast also, although it is being recorded, with the discussion about this 2G spectrum was happening in the Supreme Court, one judge actually turned to the other judge and said, "Ye spectrum hota kya hai?" So, now that is the point. We are having all this as part of life, and the people who were in charge of responsibility had no idea. Ye spectrum hota kya? And this is going to be more and more, because now quantum mein, in fact, very interesting. Quantum, the most interesting and new concept in quantum is quantum entanglement, for which 2 years ago the Nobel Prize was given to a set of 3 people. And our PM Narendra Modi has made a tweet where he's met one of them called Anthony Zellinger, and he has a book which he presented to Modi, and Modi has done that. So, and India has a national quantum mission as well. So they've announced a 10,000 crore national quantum mission to encourage these kind of things. But big scientists like Richard Feynman, many others, if anybody thinks he understands quantum, he doesn't really understand it. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that what we are trying to do is to draw attention to where these new technologies have become. So there was a time when the frontiers of knowledge had nothing to do with day-to-day activities. So when the frontiers of knowledge had nothing to do with the day-to-day activities, and you can even see what was the first serious science that we humans did? It was astronomy. So we looked at the celestial bodies, saw their movement, tracked their movement, and we had some ideas of the signs of the zodiac, this, that, the summer solstice, winter solstice, and all that, and so on. It was very interesting. So these were some people who were just curious with the naked eye. They were observing much, because telescopes were around only after Galileo came in. But they found it very difficult to explain to people why they're doing it, because most humans suddenly want to know what is the application, where can I use it? And therefore they invented a field called astrology. So they said, "Oh, Mangal aisa pahunch gaya, that is going to be very bad for you. Oh, Shani yahan ho gaya, wo ho gaya." And something which we know is relative speed. So when some planet is retrograde, oh, bada gadbad ho jayega, ye ho jayega, wo ho jayega. And because they had measured these periods, they could do something which most of you would probably know. Shani ki 7.5 lag jati hai. Because it takes 30 years to go around 12 zodiac signs, 2.5 years in each zodiac sign. Therefore, on your sign of birth, plus minus 1, 7.5 years, Shani ki dasha, 7.5 साल तक रहेगी, ढैया दूसरी ढैया थी. So they created a marketing wing for astronomy. Just like today, we are looking for science to be funded by somebody, and it is largely military which funds your internet, etc. All came out of DARPA. Here, AI, machine translation. So the people who were working in this field, after they had created machines which can calculate, etc., were curious that what other human kind of things can machines do? Can machines think? And around 1958, a bunch of people got together and started looking at this, and that is when the term artificial intelligence came in. But what happened to them was, because they were largely computer scientists, they had a very simplistic understanding of the world. They said that, let us take two languages, but ideas are independent of language. He says there is a dictionary which will have one word for any of these ideas. Then you can have a dictionary for the other language. Every word have this thing. And if I can get a computer to do that matching and this thing, we can do machine translation. And they were very excited about it. And they got funding for it because US was very worried about what Russia is doing. There was a competitive race between US and Russia. And they were willing to pay money to the scientists if they could do some automatic translation from Russian to English. But as you know, languages are not that simple. You cannot translate by having dictionary of one language and dictionary of another language into that, because there are nuances. The same word has different meaning. Different words are used to describe the same thing. Everything is so contextual. So it didn't happen. Now, of course, it's happening with the new AI. You can do automatic translation and so on and so forth. But it took much longer. So one of the things about scientific progress is that you can never say when the big breakthrough is going to come. But scientists continue to progress on that. So in AI, for example, there was a lot of hope around 1958, etc. Then there was a big disappointment. They said nothing useful will come out of it. And in fact, I know many people who did their PhD in artificial intelligence, who developed expert systems and so on, rule-based expert systems. Language was Prolog and Lisp and so on. And people who did this were finally teaching database and word star, Lotus 1, 2, 3 and so on. Because that is what was happening. But then a few years ago, there was a second round of interest in AI with the new methods that were there. Three things happened. One was faster chips. The original CPUs were not good enough for doing the calculation which AI needed, but the chips which are being used for computer games, called graphic processing unit, they could do that. So that was one thing. The other thing was that instead of going after these rule-based expert systems, they said, let's look at the data and find patterns in the data, rather than trying to find what rules they are following. The third was the amount of data itself. So with the internet and with this kind of a thing, a lot more information was available on the internet to what we could call train the model. When we were young, you try to look at the photographs of somebody, you will get a photograph of their graduation from university with that gown, then photograph of their marriage, or then photograph of themselves attending some other marriage. Probably 3 or 4 photographs you could get of a person in this thing. But today there's a photograph every time. When you are going to start eating something, there's a photograph. When you finished eating something, there's a photograph. When you've done something. So you could have a lot more data. So if you want to recognize me by my photograph, you have enough photographs on the internet posted by somebody or the other to be able to do that. So more data, more powerful speed, new methods of working led to the resurgence of AI, which you saw in the last few years. Real breakthrough happened 1.5 years ago with ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT created something where it was conversational in nature. You didn't have to be a programmer to write the programs. See, when I started programming, I had to do everything in Fortran, convert everything into Fortran, whatever. Then they came COBOL, Pascal, C, C++, Java, Python, etc. But now we are saying no coding is needed at all. So you can become a computer user, I'm not using the word programmer, without having anything. You just keep on prompting, and it is sometimes called prompt engineering if they want it, but basically it's saying trial and error and find some patterns. So this has given a big shift. So two things happened when this ChatGPT came. One set of people proceeded to ban it. See, in US, this state has banned it, that state has banned it, this, that, whatever was banned. Another set embraced it. Today, people have now accepted it. They are realizing they can't challenge it, and that is accepted. It has also progressed more. They began with what was called ChatGPT 3, then it became 3.5, then 4. The current one is called 4.0. O is for Omni, 4 Omni. And what is on the horizon in 6 months' time is ChatGPT 5, which they say will have the intellect equivalent to a PhD, or the knowledge base equivalent to a PhD. So this is the progress that has happened, and the resistance to the use of ChatGPT is now declining. And not only that, original ChatGPT was only for restricted to text. Now you have images, this, that, whatever, and so on and so forth. So in fact, Koshiram is making a video of mine where I have given him a text message, and he's creating the video from AI itself. So you will find that very shortly, in fact, I am trying to plan a book written by AI, in a sense steered by me, but written by AI. This is the way it is. So concerns are now coming up about the use and misuse of AI. And that's why I distributed that book called Ethics of AI. Therefore, it becomes something in which everybody participates. See, earlier on, the idea was that, in fact, when I started computing, it was a serious opinion. Anybody who's not doing PhD in physics or something, he has nothing to do with a computer. And that is why it was not meant for that. I remember TIFR professors, etc., would say when NIIT was trying to promote computers, the computer is not for everybody. It is only for, see, anybody who does not have to solve a differential equation has no need for a computer. That was the kind of thing, but it changed. And now we are looking at more and more conversational, human, and it will change everything. Biggest impact is going to be on the education system. The education system is not prepared for it. But you have seen the crisis that has happened in all those exams. That clearly shows that this system is completely out of context and it will get changed. And I want to just share with you two somewhat basic concepts. One is the concept of a learning algorithm. We understand that when computers came, and in fact, even before computers came, people started using certain procedures and steps to do something. In cooking, it was called a recipe. You wanted to make something, you could say, do this, add this. What you call a recipe for cooking is called an algorithm in a more fancy word. That these are the steps you follow and you will get what the answer is. But typically, a recipe or an algorithm. So the algorithm or a recipe, you do exactly the same steps again and again, although the data may change. The learning algorithm is such where the algorithm itself learns when it has been used several times. I'll quote from a very standard definition of a learning algorithm from a book by Thomas Mitchell. Thomas Mitchell has a very standard book on machine learning, and they have a definition which is quite nice, easy to remember, and clarifies everything. Because what happens is sometimes people personalize AI and try to say AI will do this, AI can do that, AI will do that. Very good, AI is very harmful, etc., etc. They try to personify AI. The word is anthropomorphic. But the definition from a pure strict point of view, is a learning algorithm for a given task T with performance measure P is such that the performance measure P improves with experience E. So the first thing is the task must be defined. Can't generally say that नहीं वो बहुत अच्छा करता है, वो बहुत अच्छा है, नहीं, तो क्या करता है? And there has to be a performance measure. कि how well he does, you just can't say नहीं नहीं साहब कमाल है, वैसा तो कोई करता ही नहीं है, कभी हो ही नहीं सकता. No, you have to have some performance measure, and that performance measure will improve with running this algorithm time and again, which is as with experience E. And what it means by experience E is that you can have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, whatever methods. Now, this is why AI became better and better over time. This came as a shock to a lot of people. Ordinary people don't understand even today. So one of the big successes of this was it was considered that chess is a very complicated game and the machine can never play a game like chess. And Gary Kasparov and IBM had competitions every year to see whether Gary Kasparov, who was the human champion, can defeat IBM software. And Gary Kasparov was winning throughout, except 1 year, Gary Kasparov lost. And he actually didn't believe that the machine could have defeated him. He was willing to believe that there's another human player who's better than him, and they've hidden that human player behind and saying those are the moves of the machine. Later on, he came to accept that actually what happens in learning algorithms. But this is very important for you to appreciate that eventually most human tasks will be done better by the machine than by humans. This is difficult for people to accept, but this is the truth. That the machine, where it involves motion, the robot will do it better than any human can, given enough system. Now, we have seen this in, for example, it is happening in medical diagnostics now, that they have done controlled experiments. The computer decision is much better than the human decision on things like eye disorders, various diseases, diagnosis, etc., etc. Already seen that ChatGPT itself, you can get draft of content, this, that, which is pretty good. So the fear comes about regulating, and in fact, people are just like Turnitin was the plagiarism detector, they're trying to create AI detectors that interesting, I will use AI to write it, etc. And of course, they are there. But the point is, just like for so many manual operations now, the machines can do it much better. There are many cognitive operations which the machines can do much better. But there is still a lot of things which humans can do which machines can't do, because as you have seen, machines can do well on which they have the adequate data and the training, and they can do it better than humans. But something which is conceptual, this thing, or new, they cannot do it so easily. And just to verify this, yesterday I played around with ChatGPT and I asked them the same question which I asked you as a group. What is multiplication? And he says repeated addition, etc., etc., because that is what is given in most books. So it is not that conceptually it is going to be able to do anything better than you. Or whatever is commonly done by people, it will be able to do that and it will be able to remember that. I asked it about the water also. Immediately it says 75% of this. Of course, because it is saying data-wise, 75% of the surface is water, etc., etc. But it doesn't go deep enough to say, no, but the total water is only 0.02%. So this is where the point is, that we will now have things which will be done by the AI, which is supporting level and lower level. Like in all bureaucracies, organizations, there's a person at the lowest level who does something, then somebody above him looks at it, and then somebody looks at it, then it is finally approved. We will have the same thing, except that what that undersecretary used to produce for you will be done by a ChatGPT. And then you will look it up and so on. Another way of appreciating that is, and I see there's lots of people, so many people give you so many examples of what ChatGPT did wrong. So I try to explain to them that, look here, you are so used to searching for Google or some other database that you expect a precise answer, a complete answer which is there in the database. But ChatGPT is not a database. ChatGPT is a learning model which is a predictor of what? So, on the basis of words which have been said, what is the kind of thing which a human would have responded to? And therefore, it will be constrained by the data it has, the training it has done, and so on.